Welcome back to Speducation. I am your host, Brandon Reed, and if this is your first time to the channel, a special welcome to you. Well, it's a new week, and we do have a new lesson. So, what are we going to be learning about? Today's lesson, ISPs. So, you probably already know what an IEP is, but for those of you who don't remember it, an IEP stands for Individualized Education Plan. Now, an ISP is slightly different. It stands for Individualized Service Plan, and it's basically the private school equivalent to a public school IEP. Now, you're probably wondering, what is the difference between the two? And is an ISP better or is it worse? Well, that's actually what we're going to be talking about today. So, what is an ISP? Well, an ISP is the written details of the supports, activities, and resources required for the individual to achieve personal goals. And the reason that private schools use ISPs instead of IEPs is because private schools are not legally required to provide special ed services to students with learning disabilities. And the reason why is because they're private. Remember that one term that I told you about, FAPE, free and appropriate public education? Well, that covers all public schools. It even covers charter schools that are public as well. But private schools are different because private schools, you don't automatically get in. You have to apply to those schools. Now, the school can accept you or reject you. But if they do accept you and you do have a learning disability, they can provide services to you through an ISP, but it may not look exactly like an IEP. So, what are the differences between an ISP and an IEP? The differences between an IEP and an ISP are as follows. IEPs are a blueprint for a student's special education experience in a public school. The plan must ensure that the child receives a free and appropriate public education, known as FAPE. ISPs are a plan paid for by the local school district for students with disabilities who attend private schools. A service plan does not have to ensure a child is provided with FAPE. An IEP lays out the services that the child with a learning disability will receive. These are provided at no cost to the family. An ISP lays out the services that will be made available to a child. These are provided at no cost to the family, but the school may require parents to take their child to a public school for speech and or occupational services. Special ed testing is provided to the student by the school in an IEP. In an ISP, special ed testing is provided to the student by the local education agency. Parents have due process rights under FAPE. However, in a private school, parents do not have due process rights under FAPE. So those are just some of the differences. And you're probably wondering, well, if private schools don't necessarily have to provide special ed services for my child who has a learning disability, then who pays for those services? Because private schools do require parents to pay tuition for their child to go there. And how is it that they can provide services at no cost to the family? Well, that's because of the LEA, Local Education Agency. A perfect example of this is when I was applying for jobs, one of the jobs that I applied for was at Roncalli High School here in Indianapolis, Indiana. It's a private school, private Catholic school that operates within Perry Township. Now, Perry Township has numerous schools. It has Perry Meridian High School, Southport High School, Southport Middle School, Perry Meridian Middle School, etc. Now, because Roncalli is a private school and they don't have special ed services for their students, they have to basically contract out special ed teachers through Perry Township. So that means that Perry Township has a certain amount of money that they use to help pay for students that go to private schools. So if you are a parent living in Perry Township and you don't necessarily agree with Perry Township's policies, So you want to take them to a private school like Roncalli, you can do that. And Perry Township will pay for those special ed services. But not all of the services are covered, which is why if you need speech or language or occupational services, Roncalli may say you need to go to Perry Township or you need to go to Southport or Perry Meridian because they can provide those services. We can't. And they're not required to because they're not a free and appropriate public education. They're a private school. So I know that this sounds really complicated and there's a lot going on, but you may be wondering, well, which one is better? It sounds like a public school might be better. Well, that may be the case. Although some private schools have higher rigors for academic performance. It's entirely up to you. And that's the thing. It's a decision that you and your family have to decide. There are benefits and drawbacks of both, but in the end, it's going to be your decision, what you feel is best for your child. So, if you learned something new today, you liked what you saw, or you're new to the channel, please click that like button. And if you want updates on future videos, feel free to click the subscribe button and ring the bell for updates on future videos. And as always, if you have questions or comments or concerns about anything that you saw today, especially if you're wanting more resources, check out the description for this video because I put links to some websites where you can get more information. But if you'd like to share anything, please drop a line in the comments section and I'd love to hear from you. And until next time, class dismissed.